The school bell rang loudly across Westview High School. Students rushed through the hallways to their next classes. It was mid-October, and the fall semester was well underway. Everyone had settled into their routines. That was why the new girl stood out so much. Amber Lewis waited quietly outside the main office, holding her schedule in one hand and a worn backpack in the other. She was tall and slim, with light brown hair cut in a simple style that reached her shoulders. Her eyes were an unusual shade that seemed to shift between blue and gray depending on the light. She wore plain jeans and a dark blue sweater that looked a size too big. Principal Donna Clark stepped out of her office and smiled at the new student. "All your paperwork is in order, Amber. Let me show you to your first class." As they walked down the hallway, Principal Clark spoke in a friendly tone. "Your transcripts from homeschooling are quite impressive. I'm sure you'll do well here." Amber nodded but said little. Her eyes moved around constantly, taking in every detail of the building, the posters on the walls, the rows of lockers, as if she had never seen a high school before. They stopped outside room 112. The sign on the door read, "Advanced Physics, Mr. Harold Bennett." "This is your first class," Principal Clark said. "Mr. Bennett is one of our best teachers. I'll introduce you." She knocked once and opened the door. 25 students turned to look at them. At the front of the room stood Mr. Bennett, a man in his late 40s with short gray hair and glasses. He was writing equations on the whiteboard. "Mr. Bennett, sorry to interrupt. This is Amber Lewis, your new student." Mr. Bennett put down his marker and walked over. "Welcome to Advanced Physics, Amber. We're discussing orbital mechanics today. Please take a seat." Amber nodded and found an empty desk in the back row. She sat down and took out a notebook. Around her, students whispered and glanced her way. A boy with dark hair in the desk next to hers smiled at her. "Hi, I'm Jason Miller," he whispered. "Transfer students are rare in October." "My aunt moved here for work," Amber said softly. Her voice had an odd accent that was hard to place. "We relocated from very far away." Mr. Bennett cleared his throat. "As I was explaining, the relationship between orbital velocity and distance follows this equation." He wrote out a complex formula on the board. "Can anyone tell me what happens to the orbital period as we increase the distance from the central body?" The class was silent. Jason looked confused. Most students were copying the formula without understanding it. "It increases by the square root of the cube of the distance ratio," Amber said clearly. The entire class turned to look at her. Mr. Bennett raised his eyebrows. "That's correct." "Very good, Ms. Lewis." He looked surprised. "Can you explain why?" Amber hesitated for a moment. "The gravitational force decreases with the square of the distance. This changes the acceleration, which affects the time needed to complete one orbit. The math shows it follows the 3/2 power law." Mr. Bennett stared at her. "That's university-level understanding. Did you study physics extensively in your homeschooling?" "Yes," Amber said simply. "My parents thought it was important." For the rest of the class, Mr. Bennett continued the lesson, occasionally glancing at Amber with curiosity. When he asked challenging questions, she always knew the answers, explaining complex concepts in simple terms. After class ended, Mr. Bennett called Amber to his desk while other students filed out. "Your understanding of physics is remarkable," he said, "but I noticed you seem unsure about some basic things. You didn't know how to log into our school computer system, yet you can explain Kepler's laws like you've known them all your life." Amber shifted uncomfortably. "I was raised differently. We focused on certain subjects more than others." "I see," Mr. Bennett said, though he clearly didn't. "Well, we're starting our solar system projects next week. Each student will create a model and paper explaining one aspect of our solar system." Amber's eyes brightened. "I would enjoy that very much." Over the next few days, Amber settled into a routine at school. She excelled in science and math classes, but struggled with history and literature. She ate lunch alone most days, watching other students with curious eyes as if studying their behavior. Jason Miller was the only student who regularly talked to her. He found her fascinating. Where did you live before coming here? He asked during lunch on her fourth day. Far away, Amber said vaguely. A small community. Very isolated. That explains why you're so confused by our cafeteria food, Jason joked, as Amber examined her pizza slice with strange intensity. The texture is interesting, she said, poking it with her fork instead of picking it up with her hands. Days passed. In Mr. Bennett's class, the solar system projects were assigned. Amber was given the topic of comparing Earth to other potentially habitable planets in our solar system and beyond. When the projects were due 2 weeks later, students brought in simple models made of painted styrofoam balls and poster board charts. Amber arrived with a complex three-dimensional model that seemed to glow from within, showing not just planets but orbital paths, gravitational fields, and radiation zones. Mr. Bennett was speechless as he examined her work. The calculations included, in her paper, discussed atmospheric composition, magnetic field requirements, and orbital stability factors that went far beyond high school level understanding. This is extraordinary, he said, flipping through her 15-page report. Where did you find this information? Research, Amber said quickly. Too quickly. That evening, Mr. Bennett stayed late at school, reading through Amber's paper again. The knowledge it contained was beyond what most undergraduate students could produce. He searched for paragraphs from her paper online, suspecting plagiarism, but found nothing identical. Something wasn't right. No homeschooled student would have access to this level of specialized knowledge unless she was some kind of genius. And if she was a genius, why was she struggling to remember basic historical facts or understand simple cultural references? He made a decision. Tomorrow he would call in Amber and her guardian for a meeting. This level of inconsistency needed explanation. Either she was receiving outside help, or something very unusual was happening with Amber Lewis. As the sun set, outside his classroom window, Mr. Bennett had no idea that his accusation would uncover something far more incredible than academic dishonesty, something that would change his understanding of the universe forever. The next morning, Mr. Bennett sent a note requesting Amber and her guardian to meet him after school. Throughout the day, he watched Amber carefully during class. She sat quietly, taking notes and answering questions perfectly when called upon. Too perfectly, he thought. When the final bell rang, Amber stayed in her seat while other students rushed out. Jason Miller paused at her desk. "Want to walk home together?" he asked. "I cannot today," Amber replied. "Mr. Bennett wishes to speak with me and my aunt." Jason frowned. "Is everything okay?" "I am uncertain," Amber said. She spoke in an oddly formal way that Jason had noticed before. He seemed concerned about my project. "Well, it was pretty amazing," Jason said with a smile. "Way better than my painted styrofoam balls. Text me later?" Amber nodded, though she looked confused at the phrase "text me." Jason waved and left the classroom. At exactly 3:30, a woman entered Mr. Bennett's classroom. She was tall, with short blonde hair, and wore a simple gray business suit. Her eyes were the same unusual color as Amber's. "I am Elaine Mason, Amber's aunt and guardian," she said, extending her hand. "You wanted to see us?" Mr. Bennett shook her hand. "Yes, thank you for coming. Please, both of you sit down." Amber and Elaine sat in front chairs facing his desk. Mr. Bennett remained standing, gathering papers from his desk. "Ms. Mason, I wanted to discuss Amber's work in my class," he began. "Specifically, this solar system project." He placed Amber's paper and photos of her model on the desk between them. "Is there a problem?" Elaine asked. "Amber has always been an excellent student. That's precisely what I want to discuss." Mr. Bennett put on his glasses and picked up Amber's paper. "This work is beyond high school level. It contains information about planetary formation and potential habitable zones that matches current research at the university level." "Amber has always been interested in astronomy," Elaine said smoothly. "She reads extensively on the subject." Mr. Bennett placed the paper down and looked directly at Amber. "Your calculations about magnetic field requirements for potentially habitable worlds include formulas I've never seen published in any textbook." Amber glanced at Elaine, then back at Mr. Bennett. I derived them based on principles in the books I studied. That's not possible, Mr. Bennett said firmly. These calculations would require advanced computer modeling or access to research that isn't publicly available. Are you suggesting my niece cheated? Elaine's voice became cold. I'm suggesting that someone else did this work, Mr. Bennett said. Amber shows remarkable knowledge in some areas but doesn't understand basic things that any student her age should know. Yesterday, she didn't know who the first president of our country was. As I explained, I was homeschooled in a remote community, Amber said quietly. Our education was specialized. Mr. Bennett crossed his arms. I've searched for records of your previous education. The homeschool group you listed doesn't exist. Elaine's face tightened. There must be a mistake in the records. I don't think so. Mr. Bennett pulled out more papers. And these formulas, in your project, I consulted with a colleague at the university. He said they're theoretical approaches that aren't even taught to undergraduates. Amber looked increasingly uncomfortable. She gripped the edge of her chair tightly. Mr. Bennett, Elaine said carefully, Amber is a gifted student who somehow knows advanced astrophysics but doesn't know how to use a smartphone. Mr. Bennett interrupted. Who writes complex equations about orbital mechanics but was confused by the water fountain in the hallway? Who can describe planetary atmospheres in detail but didn't know what pizza was? Amber's face paled. I have two possibilities in mind, Mr. Bennett continued. Either Amber is receiving work from someone else and presenting it as her own, which is academic dishonesty and grounds for expulsion. That is not true, Amber said loudly, standing up suddenly. The lights in the classroom flickered as she did, or, Mr. Bennett continued, staring at her. There's something you're not telling me about her background and education. Elaine stood up as well, placing a calming hand on Amber's shoulder. Mr. Bennett, I understand your concerns. Perhaps we can discuss this privately without Amber present? No, Mr. Bennett said firmly. I want honest answers. Where did this information come from? No student could produce this level of work without help. I did not cheat, Amber said, her voice trembling slightly. I know these things because, Amber. Elaine's voice was sharp with warning. Because what? Mr. Bennett pressed. The room fell silent. Outside, they could hear students laughing as they crossed the parking lot. Inside, the tension grew until Amber finally spoke again. Because where I come from, this is basic knowledge, she said quietly. Mr. Bennett frowned. And where exactly do you come from? Before either could answer, the classroom door opened. Principal Clark stepped in, followed by the school counselor, Mrs. Winters. Mr. Bennett, I got your email about concerns regarding Amber's work, Principal. Clark said, I thought we should discuss this as a group. Mr. Bennett nodded grimly. Perfect timing. I was just asking Ms. Mason to explain how Amber could produce university-level research when she doesn't even know basic facts about our country or culture. Principal Clark looked at the papers on the desk, then at Amber and Elaine. These are serious concerns. Falsifying records and academic dishonesty could result in immediate expulsion. We did not falsify anything, Elaine insisted. There are simply things we cannot explain easily. Then try, Mr. Bennett challenged, because right now I'm prepared to recommend that Amber be removed from this school and that we report this incident to the school board. Amber looked desperately at Elaine, who seemed to be considering something important. The adults stared at each other in tense silence. Suddenly, the classroom door opened again. Jason Miller stood there out of breath. Sorry, he gasped. I forgot my backpack. He stopped, sensing the tension. Is everything okay? Jason, please leave, Mr. Bennett said firmly. We're having a private meeting. Jason didn't move. He looked at Amber, who appeared close to tears. What's happening? He asked. Mr. Bennett thinks I'm lying about my work, Amber said shakily. He believes I cheated. Jason frowned. That's crazy. Amber's the smartest person I've ever met. Jason, now is not the time, Principal Clark began. No, this is exactly the time, Jason interrupted, because I saw something last night that might explain everything. I was walking past Amber's house and I saw… Jason! Amber's voice was suddenly sharp with panic. The adults turned to her in surprise. Amber had never raised her voice before. The lights flickered again, more noticeably this time. Elaine took a deep breath and looked at Mr. Bennett with resolution in her eyes. "Perhaps it is time for the truth," she said quietly, "but not here, not like this." The tension in the classroom was heavy. Elaine looked at everyone and then spoke calmly. "I suggest we continue this discussion at our home," she said. "What needs to be explained should not happen here." Principal Clark frowned. "Ms. Mason, if there's an issue with Amber's enrollment or academic honesty, it should be addressed now." "I understand," Elaine replied, "but trust me when I say this is more complex than it appears. If you come to our home, everything will make sense." Mr. Bennett looked skeptical but nodded slowly. "Fine, I think that's reasonable." "I'm coming too," Jason said quickly. "This doesn't involve you, Jason," Mrs. Winters, the counselor, said gently. Amber spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. "He should come. He has already seen things he shouldn't have." Everyone looked at Jason, who nodded. "Yeah, like I was trying to say last night I saw…" "Not here," Elaine cut him off sharply. "Please, all of you, meet us at our home in 1 hour. This address." She wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to Mr. Bennett. As they left the school, everyone went separate ways to their cars. Jason walked with Amber toward the parking lot. "Are you going to tell them?" he asked quietly. Amber looked at him with worried eyes. "We may have no choice now. What exactly did you see last night?" Jason glanced around to make sure no one could hear them. "I was walking by your house. I forgot to tell you earlier that I live just 3 blocks away. I saw lights through your window, not normal lights. And you and your aunt were talking to someone, or something. That wasn't human." Amber's face went pale. "You should not have seen that." "What was it?" Jason asked. "Some kind of hologram?" "Please," Amber whispered. "Wait until we are home. It is not safe to discuss here." An hour later, 3 cars parked outside a modest, 1-story house on Maple Street. Mr. Bennett arrived with Principal Clark. Mrs. Winters drove separately and Jason rode his bike. They gathered on the front porch where Elaine welcomed them inside. The house looked normal but sparsely furnished, as if they hadn't lived there long or didn't plan to stay. The living room had a couch, 2 chairs, and little else. No pictures hung on the walls. No personal items sat on shelves. "Please sit down," Elaine said, gesturing to the furniture. "Amber will join us shortly." Everyone sat awkwardly. Mr. Bennett pulled out Amber's paper again. "Ms. Mason, I want to be clear. We're here because there are serious concerns about…" He stopped as Amber entered the room. She had changed clothes and now wore a simple dark blue outfit that looked almost like a uniform. Around her neck hung a small pendant that glowed faintly. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice sounding different, more confident. "What I am about to tell you will be difficult to believe, but it is necessary now." Elaine stood beside her. "Before we begin, we need your word that what is shared here will remain private, regardless of your decision afterward." "I can't promise that without knowing what you're going to tell us," Principal Clark said firmly. "Then I'll just say it," Jason interrupted, unable to contain himself any longer. "They're aliens, aren't they? From another planet?" The room fell silent. Mr. Bennett laughed nervously. "That's ridiculous." Amber and Elaine didn't laugh. They exchanged a look. Then Amber touched the pendant around her neck. The lights in the room dimmed and a soft blue glow emanated from her hand. "Not exactly as your stories describe aliens," Amber said quietly. "But yes, I was not born on Earth." Mrs. Winters gasped. Mr. Bennett stood up abruptly. "This is absurd. Some kind of trick to distract us from the real issue." "It is no trick," Elaine said firmly. She touched a device on her wrist and suddenly the bare wall behind them transformed into what looked like a window. But the view wasn't of their backyard. Instead, It showed a landscape with purple-tinged plants and 2 moons visible in a reddish sky. This was Amber's home, Elaine said softly. A planet you call Kepler 186f, though we had another name for it. Principal Clark had gone very pale. This is some kind of projection technology. It is a memory, Amber corrected, stored and preserved before our evacuation. She looked sad. Our world was destroyed 3 Earth years ago. Jason moved closer, to the projection, fascinated. So you're refugees? Elaine nodded. Yes. There are approximately 12,000 of our kind scattered across Earth, integrated into your society. I am Amber's guardian, assigned to help her adjust to life here. Mr. Bennett had not moved from where he stood. This is impossible. Is it? Amber asked. She held out her hand, and above it appeared a perfect miniature model of their solar system, planets moving in orbit around a tiny glowing sun. This is why I know about space and physics. My people mastered interstellar travel centuries ago. What you call advanced knowledge is what every child learns where I come from. Mrs. Winters had recovered enough to speak. But why pretend to be a student? Why come to our school? Because I am a student, Amber said simply. I am 15 in Earth years. I need to learn about your world, your history, your culture, things I don't know because I wasn't born here. That's why she didn't know about pizza or smartphones, Jason realized, or basic history stuff. Mr. Bennett was shaking his head. This is elaborate, I'll grant you that, but there must be a rational explanation. Amber sighed and looked at Elaine, who nodded slightly. Amber closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, they had changed. The pupils had expanded and taken on a subtle violet glow. Would human technology allow this, she asked. She raised her hand, and the textbook on the coffee table floated gently into the air. Principal Clark jumped back. Mrs. Winters made a small sound of shock. Mr. Bennett stared, mouth open. We have certain mental abilities your species has not yet developed, Amber explained, letting the book settle back down. Nothing dangerous, just different. My God, whispered Mr. Bennett. It's really true. Now you understand why my knowledge is uneven, Amber said. I know advanced physics because it's basic education where I'm from, but I don't know your history or literature because those are unique to Earth. Jason was grinning with excitement. This is amazing, an actual alien in our school. The proper term is displaced extraterrestrial refugee, Elaine corrected with a small smile. And this is why we need your discretion. If Amber's true nature became public knowledge, there would be panic. Principal Clark finished the thought. Or worse. Yes, Elaine said gravely. We have been given sanctuary here under strict conditions. Secrecy is our primary protection. Mr. Bennett had finally found his voice again. So all this time, when you were answering questions in class, I was answering honestly, using knowledge I brought with me, Amber said. I did not cheat. I did not lie about my work. The room fell quiet as everyone processed this extraordinary revelation. The wall still showed the alien landscape with its strange plants and twin moons. The model solar system still hovered above Amber's hand, tiny planets rotating silently in their orbits. What happens now? Mrs. Winters finally asked. Elaine looked at each of them in turn. That depends on all of you. No one spoke for several long moments. The projection of the alien landscape continued to glow on the wall, casting strange shadows across the room. Mr. Bennett finally broke the silence. I owe you an apology, Amber, he said, his voice unsteady. I accused you of cheating when you were just being yourself. Amber nodded. You had no way of knowing the truth. Principal Clark was still staring at the floating miniature solar system above Amber's hand. This is beyond anything I could have imagined. How many others like you are there? At last count, 12,247 refugees on Earth, Elaine replied. We are scattered across your planet, integrated into various communities. Most are adults. Amber is one of only a few hundred younger ones. Are there others at our school? Mrs. Winters asked. No. Amber is the only one in this region, Elaine said. We are placed far apart for safety. Jason, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. What happened to your world? You said it was destroyed. A look of deep sadness crossed Amber's face. The miniature solar system in her hand flickered slightly. There was a war, she said softly. Not our war. We were caught between two much larger civilizations. Our world was collateral damage. That's horrible, Mrs. Winters whispered. Amber closed her hand, and the floating model vanished. We were peaceful, scientific. We had no weapons to defend ourselves. When the attack came, we had only hours to evacuate. Many did not escape. My parents, Amber continued, her voice growing quieter, were scientists. They helped me onto the last evacuation vessel, but stayed behind to ensure others could escape. I watched from orbit as our atmosphere burned. The room fell silent again. Even Mr. Bennett, who had been skeptical, now looked deeply moved. Earth was chosen as our sanctuary because your species is biologically compatible with ours, Elaine explained. We can pass as human with minor medical adjustments. And your government? Principal Clark asked. Do they know about this? A small division within your government coordinates with us, Elaine said carefully. They helped create our identities, our backgrounds. They monitor our integration. That's why your records seem suspicious, Mr. Bennett realized. They were created, not transferred. Yes, our documentation must appear normal but can't withstand deep investigation, Elaine admitted. It's a necessary deception. Jason moved closer to Amber. So all those times you asked me about weird things, like why people say break a leg for good luck or why we keep pets, it wasn't because you were homeschooled. It was because you're literally not from this world. Amber smiled slightly. Yes, Earth customs are very strange to me. This explains so much, Mr. Bennett said, shaking his head in wonder. Your amazing knowledge of physics and astronomy, but your confusion over basic things. Principal Clark stood up suddenly, looking concerned. Wait, what happens if we tell people about this? Are we in danger? We would be the ones in danger, Elaine said firmly. If our presence became widely known, there would be those who would fear us, hunt us, study us. We've seen how humans often react to differences. But you have these abilities, Mrs. Winters said, gesturing to where the book had floated. Couldn't you protect yourselves? Our abilities are limited, Amber explained, and we took an oath of nonviolence when we were granted sanctuary here. We will not harm humans even to protect ourselves. That's why secrecy is our primary defense, Elaine added, and why we must ask for your discretion. Mr. Bennett walked to the window, looking outside at the normal suburban street. Nothing out there suggested the extraordinary truth he'd just learned. So what happens now? He asked, echoing Mrs. Winters' earlier question. Elaine glanced at Amber before responding. That depends on you. We could relocate. We've done it before when our secret was threatened. Or Amber could stay at our school, Jason finished, eagerly. Keep learning about Earth, keep being my friend. Just now we'd know the truth. Is that even possible? Mrs. Winters asked, looking at Principal Clark. Principal Clark seemed to be deep in thought. Legally, Amber has the right documentation to attend our school. As for the academic issues, she turned to Mr. Bennett. The accusation of cheating is clearly no longer valid. No, it's not, Mr. Bennett agreed. In fact, I think we have an extraordinary opportunity here. Everyone looked at him curiously. Amber has knowledge that could advance our understanding of the universe, he explained, growing excited. And we have knowledge she needs about Earth and human culture. It's a perfect exchange. You would help me? Amber asked, surprised. Yes, Mr. Bennett said firmly. We could create a specialized learning plan. You could continue your regular classes but also have independent study to fill in the gaps in your Earth knowledge. And perhaps you could share some of your knowledge with us. Nothing that would expose your identity, of course. Principal Clark nodded slowly. It could work, We'd need to be extremely careful, create a cover story for any special arrangements. What? About me? Jason asked. I know the truth now. You've proven yourself trustworthy by being Amber's friend even when you found her strange, Elaine said. We would welcome your continued friendship and guidance. Jason grinned. Awesome. I've always wanted an alien best friend. Displaced. Extraterrestrial refugee, Amber corrected, but she was smiling too. Mrs. Winters still looked concerned. This is a lot of responsibility, keeping such a secret. It is, Elaine acknowledged, and if any of you feel you cannot bear it, we will understand. We'll leave tonight, relocate somewhere new. Amber has done this before. Amber's smile faded. 3 times already. It's hard to start over. Mr. Bennett looked at his colleagues, then back at Amber. I don't think that will be necessary. I believe I speak for all of us when I say your secret is safe. Principal Clark and Mrs. Winters both nodded in agreement. Thank you, Elaine said, visibly relieved. Your compassion does credit to humanity. I have one condition, Mr. Bennett said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. I want to know more about your world's understanding of physics, not to publish or share, just to learn. Amber's eyes brightened with genuine happiness for the first time since they'd met her. I would be honored to teach you as you have taught me. Then it's settled, Principal Clark declared. Amber stays, we adjust her learning plan, and no one outside this room ever knows the truth. As if to seal their agreement, the projection of Amber's homeworld on the wall slowly faded away. The ordinary living room returned, but everyone in it knew that nothing would ever be ordinary again. Jason looked at his new friend with newfound wonder. So, want to help me with my physics? Homework? He joked. For the first time, Amber laughed, a sound of pure joy that made the lights in the room glow just a little brighter. 2 months passed since the revelation at Amber's house. Spring arrived, bringing warm sunshine and blooming flowers to Westview High School. For most students, life continued as normal, but for a small group who shared an extraordinary secret, everything had changed. In Mr. Bennett's classroom after school, Amber stood at the whiteboard. Instead of being the student, she was teaching. Mr. Bennett sat at a desk, watching with amazement as she filled the board with equations. So you see, Amber explained, gravity isn't just a force as your science currently defines it. It's a property of space-time that can be manipulated under certain conditions. Mr. Bennett shook his head in wonder. This changes everything we thought we knew about physics. Not changes, Amber corrected gently. Expands. Your Einstein was very close with his theories. He just didn't have the right tools to see the complete picture. The door opened and Jason walked in carrying his backpack. Sorry I'm late, basketball practice ran long. You didn't miss much, Mr. Bennett said with a smile. Just the complete reinvention of gravitational theory. Jason laughed and took a seat. These after-school sessions had become a regular event. Twice a week, Amber would share knowledge from her world while Mr. Bennett and Jason listened. In return, they helped Amber understand Earth culture, history, and social customs. How's the special project coming along? Jason asked. Mr. Bennett's eyes lit up. It's remarkable. Amber has helped me design experiments that demonstrate principles we never considered before. Of course, we're presenting it as theoretical work only. The important thing is that your scientific community begins asking the right questions, Amber said. The answers will come in time. The arrangement they had created was working well. Principal Clark had approved a modified curriculum for Amber, allowing her to skip certain science requirements while focusing more on Earth history and culture. Mrs. Winters had sessions with her to help with social integration, and Mr. Bennett had become not just her teacher, but her student as well. There's something I've been wondering, Jason said as he unpacked his books. Do you miss your home? Amber paused, her hand still raised toward the whiteboard. For a moment, the light in the room seemed to dim slightly. Every day, she said softly. But Earth has become a new home, different but special in its own way. Are there things you like better about Earth? Mr. Bennett asked. sensing this was an important conversation. Amber thought for a moment. Your music. We had music, but nothing with such emotion and variety. And your sky, the way it changes colors at sunset. Our atmosphere didn't create such effects. And pizza, Jason added with a grin. You definitely didn't have pizza. Amber smiled. Yes, pizza is a wonderful Earth invention. Their conversation was interrupted when Principal Clark entered the classroom. She wasn't alone. A tall man in a dark suit followed her. His face was serious, and he carried a black briefcase. Mr. Bennett, I'm sorry to interrupt, Principal Clark said. She looked nervous. This is Mr. Frank Davis. He's from the government division that works with Amber's people. Mr. Bennett and Jason exchanged worried glances. Amber stood very still. Good afternoon, Mr. Davis said. I need to speak with all of you. He closed the door behind him. Is something wrong? Mr. Bennett asked. We've kept our agreement of secrecy. Yes, you have, Mr. Davis replied. That's partially why I'm here. He placed his briefcase on the desk and opened it. We monitor communications about our guests. Recently, we detected increased interest in theoretical physics papers being prepared by a high school teacher. Mr. Bennett turned pale. My research with Amber, it's all presented as theoretical. I never mentioned. We know. Mr. Davis interrupted. You've been careful. But your work has attracted attention from the scientific community because it's remarkably insightful. Are we in trouble? Jason asked directly. Mr. Davis surprised them with a small smile. No, quite the opposite. He pulled several folders from his briefcase. What you've been doing here, this exchange of knowledge, it's exactly what we hoped might happen when we placed people like Amber in schools and universities. You wanted us to learn from each other? Principal Clark asked. Yes, but safely, slowly, in ways that wouldn't cause panic or disruption. Mr. Davis handed one folder to Mr. Bennett. We've been watching your work closely. It's exceptional. Mr. Bennett opened the folder. Inside were official-looking documents with government seals. What is this? He asked. Authorization to continue your research with Amber under official supervision, Mr. Davis explained. Expanded resources, access to better equipment, and of course continued secrecy. Amber looked surprised. This was not part of our original agreement with your government. Plans evolve, Mr. Davis said simply. The integration program has been more successful than anticipated. We're now moving to Phase 2, controlled knowledge exchange. Wait, Jason said. So you're not here to make Amber leave or to warn us to stop? No. We're here to offer support and structure. Mr. Davis turned to Amber. Your insights, shared carefully through trusted humans like Mr. Bennett, could help advance Earth science by decades, but only if handled properly. Mr. Bennett was reading. Through the documents, his expression changing from concern to excitement. This is remarkable. You're offering a legitimate research partnership. With strict guidelines, Mr. Davis cautioned. Nothing that reveals the existence of extraterrestrial life, nothing that could be weaponized. Just pure scientific advancement. Principal Clark looked relieved. So Amber can stay at our school? Absolutely. This is where she belongs now. Mr. Davis handed another folder to Amber. Your community elders have approved this next step. They believe it honors the legacy of your parents and your people's scientific traditions. Amber opened the folder carefully. Inside was a letter written in symbols none of the humans recognized, the language of her homeworld. As she read it, tears formed in her eyes. My parents would have wanted this, she said quietly. They believed knowledge should be shared. Jason moved to stand beside his friend. So what happens now? Mr. Davis closed his briefcase. Now you continue what you've already begun. Teaching each other, learning from each other, but with our support rather than our suspicion. As Mr. Davis prepared to leave, he paused at the door. Mr. Bennett, when you first discovered Amber's secret, you could have exposed her. Instead, you chose understanding and compassion. That choice is why we believe humanity might someday be ready for the full truth. After he left, the room was quiet. The whiteboard was still covered with Amber's equations, knowledge from another world now finding a new home on Earth. "Well," Mr. Bennett said finally, "it seems your solar system project was just the beginning, Amber." Amber smiled, looking around at these humans who had become her friends, her protectors, her new family. "On my world, we had a saying," she told them. "Knowledge is the light that guides us through darkness. Thank you for helping me find that light again." Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors Amber had never seen before coming to Earth. It wasn't the sky she was born under, but it was beautiful in its own way, and now it was home.